Psh. 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 Do you not know what psh means? I'm trying to be secretive. Okay, and okay, well, it doesn't matter that we're the only one to like here, but like I need you. Okay, just like psh, come here. Don't worry about her being sneaky. Just come here. Psh. I said psh. Finally, there you go. Okay, I have something to tell you. Come here. Let me get your ear. Now, you filthy casual. How much do you know about 40K? Okay, I'll repeat that again. You filthy casual. How much do you know about 40K? You goddamn heretic. Okay, obviously, okay. Look, from your stunned face, I can tell that, maybe you need some education. Now, I don't want you to go down the dark path of being considered a heretic by the Inquisition. So I shall teach you the ways of the 40K. No, not Imperium, 40K. Because there's more than just Imperium of Man. Now, some might criticize or judge that I might be a heretic because I really like the Tau of the 40K universe because they have mechs that go zoom zoom and they go boom boom. And I kind of like mechs, Regardless of the point, though. Regardless of the point. What I'm trying to say is listen. Listen, Linda, listen. I'm gonna need you to focus up here because this is very important. This is very pivotal for our relationship here. All right. I'm gonna quiz you after. All right. And if you don't know how to answer correctly, then I might just have to report you to the Inquisition, and I wouldn't want that. I don't want you to get tortured and like brain scalped or whatever they do over there. So I'm gonna need you to pay attention, all right, sweetheart. So do me a favor, sit there, all right, be good for me, and you're gonna take this dosage of 40K I'm about to give you, okay? There you go. Okay, so where do we start? Let me ask you, do you have a favorite faction? Do you know anything about the 40K universe? Okay, stop. You obviously know nothing. You goddamn filthy casual. How I'm not mad. I'm just I'm just slightly disappointed is all. That's all. Okay. Listen, so we'll start off with one of my favorite factions. We have Tau, or what some people call the fish communists. I didn't say you could ask questions yet. Did I say you could ask questions? Did I say that? Okay, yeah, I didn't think so now, did I? So shush. Zip. But to answer your question, no, they're actually not fish people. It's just a meme in the community. And the reason they're called communists is because they have something known as the greater good. Basically, the greater good being that we all work together to work not for our individual selves, but for the greater population at large. We do everything in our power to help make sure that, our children of our children of our children will have a better life than us, right? So that might mean, personal sacrifices instead, oh, I only have food between me or this child Jimmy. Well, I'm gonna give the food to Jimmy because that's for the greater good. Oh, it's necessary that I go into this volcano to get this rare mineral where I'll probably die. It's necessary for the greater good. Telling me to go on top of a mountain, Mount Kai, and murder my my master. It's for the greater good. I know that's oddly specific. I agree. Now, one of my favorite characters in the Tau is Commander Farsight. Commander Farsight, he's one of the first to kind of break off from the Tau. He create, like, long story short, he gets disillusioned by the Ethereals, which is like the leader group of the Tau. Which there's more than that. There is the Earth Caste. The Earth Caste is the ones responsible for like building infrastructure, engineering. Fire Caste, military. Water Caste, diplomacy. The Ethereal Caste, which is like the leaders, and the Air Caste. And the Air Castes are like the ones who manage like basically like flying stuff. They go woo. So like think like planes, spaceships, whatever. But Commander Commander Farsight, one of my favorite characters. He so he got trained under someone called Commander Puretide, one of his, I guess, instructors, masters, who's kind of taught him everything he knows about war, right? And what kind of led up to this is that the Imperium of Man invaded one of Dalith, which is like one of the home worlds, prime worlds, as they call it, for the Tau. And they're like, we need Puretide's like tactics to win this battle. So what they do, kind of fucked up, they're like, Commander Farsight, you have done transgression against us by doing irregular things, right? So like an instance of that is that he managed to fix his battle suit, which is not his job. You're not allowed to do things. So for example, if you're like Fire Caste, you can't do diplomacy, or you can't like do build of like the Water Caste or Earth Caste. So it is very important that you don't like cross sections. So like your job is to do that one thing you're good at, which is like fighting. So when Commander Farsight fixed his suit, that was considered heresy in one among them, because he's not supposed to do that. Only the Earth Castes are allowed to do that. And which is a stupid ass fucking reason, because the Ethereals were just trying to find a reason to throw him under the bus and then make him go do that, because no one else could do this. But basically they told Farsight like, hey, we'll forgive you if like you take this thing, put it on your master's brain, and we scan his brain and create these like engrams. Basically think of it almost like a portable computer in your head, where like, oh shit, like, you know, the Imperium of Man is pushing down the line with 50 tanks. What would be the best tactic for this? And you know, you have the engram in your head and you're like, oh, the best tactic would be anti-tank weapons, plasma rifles, whatever. But what ended up happening is the Imperium of Man brought out Psychers, which Tau have never encountered before. And the Tau, because they have never encountered this, all the people, which was like most of the commanders other than two, which was Shadow Sun and Farsight, they never put in the engram. Everyone else did. So when these, like, when they face Psychers, they didn't know how to face it. Puretide has never seen Psychers before, and all their engrams malfunctioned, so they just kind of got froze up in battle. And what ended up happening was, because they all got frozen in battle, you know, there's malfunction. You can't just all of a sudden your commanders just be silent in the middle of battle. So we're like, okay, we have to take it out. But the thing is, by taking it out of someone's brain after you implemented it, you basically lobotomized them. So it was all for naught. It was all for nothing, and it was a waste. And that's kind of like, and the last thing that Puretide said to Farsight before, well, that was, don't trust them all, meaning the Ethereals, because they're cunning. They're is it cunning? No, what's the word for it? No questions yet. No questions. You can ask questions later. Okay, actually, fine. What's your question? What do they look like? Well, take a picture of them almost like humans with hooves and like blue skin. They're pretty cool. I mean, I'm not necessarily in it for that. There's a part of the 40k universe that, or like culture, that is really into banging aliens, but that's a whole other topic for another day. What I'm here talking about is I just really like their technology. In my opinion, they're probably the most tactical of like all the factions. Reason being is like the Imperium Man, like Astra Militarum, they just throw bodies at whatever until like they win, right? The Space Marines are a little bit more tactical, but they tend to like hype themselves up a little bit too much, right? That's actually a big thing in the Blade of Damocles. They heavily underestimated each other, the Tau and the Imperium. The Imperium, they're like, oh, we're just gonna like swipe them over under a week, and the Tau commanders were like, oh, like they can't like keep up with these losses, right? Like we're just mowing them down left and right. We'll win in a week. But the thing is, like the Imperium of Man works best in a war of attrition because they just have that many resources. While the Imperium of Man, they just underestimated how heavy the firepower is of the Tau, right? The Tau has really high penetration. Actually, a really good part of the Blade of Damocles was when they took down an Ultramarine dreadnought, and they realized, like, holy shit, this dreadnought is older than our entire species. So one of the commanders who took it down, he like analyzed it and saw that it was 6,000 years old when this dreadnought became a thing. They were still in their infancy, right? They were still cavemen, the Tau. So it's really interesting to see that like dynamic of like the cosmic horror of it. It's like, holy shit, who the fuck are we facing? Because the Tau just don't have grand scope of like what's going on in the universe. Like for the Imperium of Man, they're a tiny speck on like the outskirts. The only reason they like decide to invade the Tau is because the Tau, their watercast, which is like diplomacy, they like start going towards these like human worlds in the outskirts of the Imperium. Basically, this planets no one gives a fuck, but they're there because we need the resources. And so the Imperium at first was really sketchy of Xenos, right? They were very, very like, oh, like we don't want anything to do with these Xenos. Like, no, but like a lot of people, they kind of debated. They're like, well, you know, because they're here, we should get to know them because, you know thy enemy is the best way, like, for war, right? So they do that, but like the Tau increasingly like they bring medical supplies, they bring food, they start bringing all this technology that really, really helps the people of this planet, and keep in mind, they're in the outskirts of the Imperium. No one gives a fudge about them, like a single fudge, not even a single bean. And they don't, like, why bite the hand that feeds you? The Tau are giving them, like, they're healing the sick, they're healing the wounded, they're taking care of their children. When the Imperium has never done anything for them other than force them to work under horrible conditions, right? They have no chance of a decent life from the Imperium, but the Tau is offering everything they've probably ever wanted. So that's why a lot of these planets on the outskirts fell to the Tau Empire. Not necessarily because of war, but because they just had better working conditions than the Imperium. And obviously the Imperium didn't like that. And there's actually in Farsight, Christ of Faith, there's an Inquisitor who mentions that, like, how, it's like, I can't really blame the people for joining the Tau Empire when we treat them like shit, and they kind of done everything to not treat them like shit. So we can't really blame them. And just disillusioned by this so-called God Emperor who's a vegetable on a throne somewhere, right? Yeah, what's your other question? Sorry, I'm just really getting into it. I'm really, really getting into it. What can I say? Your nerdy femboy really, really likes 40K. But yeah, what's your question? Well, you have to keep in mind that the Imperium is a crumbling empire, right? But they're still an empire, and they're just that massive. They might be crumbling, but they're just that massive in scope, right? It's like, the best way I could almost explain it is like, maybe think of like planet Earth, right? Planet Earth, by all means, it is crumbling, right? But it's still very usable, right? We could still use it. Like, we are fucking it up, but we're still able to use it, and it's still able to pump out, like, a lot of things. And that's kind of what I mean, right? Like, the scope of Earth resources is enormous, right? But because of that, while it is crumbling under us, we are still able to pump it out with things, right? And that's kind of the same thing with the Imperium. The Imperium is just that massive that they're able to just it's crumbling, but they're able to keep pumping things out. by all means. And then if the Emperor ever comes back, well, that would be a whole different story. We'll have to see. Now, regardless of the point, though, going back to the main story here. So you can't really blame these humans for wanting to join the Tau when they just get treated better by them instead of the Imperium. But in doing so, that obviously angered a lot of people in the Imperium, and that's when they like set up a crusade with the Ultramarines, Astra Militarum, the White Scars, and I think it was the Raven Guard also. Those were like the 3 chapters that participated in the crusade against the Tau. And honestly, the Tau should have lost that war. They would have lost that war if it wasn't for the Tyranids invading Ultramar, which is the homeworld of the Ultramarines. And by doing so, they're like, okay, yeah, we kind of like, we really don't care about you, Tau. We're just going to try to put you down, move on with our lives. But we'll just, take this as a lesson not to fuck with us. But basically, long story short, like I said, Tau, Farsight, he ends up finding a sword that basically helps expand his lifespan. Like, we don't really know where the sword, it could be a sword from the time of War in Heaven, which was like when the Necrons fought the Quarks, the Eldar, and like a Catan, and like the old gods or whatever, which is a whole other story. I know you might have questions on that, but that's for a whole other topic or another story another day. But basically, he found this sword. We don't really know where it came from, but like the way he found the sword is he ran into chaos demons. He didn't know they were chaos demons because, well, they don't believe, like, the Ethereals push this narrative of like, oh, there's no such thing as like this, because if they find out there is, then maybe people might panic, right? Morale is a very important thing in the Tau Empire, but at the same time, it's like, oh, how can you defend yourself against this when you don't know what it is, right? It just kind of reminds me of the Imperium, right? Where like they used to have this, I mean, they still kind of do. It's like, oh, we don't talk about like chaos, right? But since they never talked about chaos, how can you have proper defenses when no one knows about it, right? It's like, how can I then defend myself against this, like, I don't know, this virus or like disease when no one talks about it? It's the same thing there. But